Hey guys, it's Floss. Welcome back to the channel. I have a new review and it's for Aren't You There by Demetrios. Now, as many of you know who've watched my wrap-up TBR videos, this book has been bouncing around my TBR for a number of months. I finally got to it in December and I'm so glad I did. I loved this book. This book was recommended to me by Kirsty from Melbourne on My Mind. I'm so glad she recommended it. I really enjoyed it. It's the story of Kyla Evans and she lives in Creekview. Skylar is in her final months of living in the town. She lives in a trailer with her mum. Her father passed away a few years ago. She works at the motel, Paradise Motel, and she is about to head off to art school. She has a scholarship and she's just about out the door. She mentally has been gone for a number of years. This is not the town this is the town, it's a small town. She's got two friends, one of them is also leaving and another one who had a baby is staying. Returning into the town is Josh, who she used to work with at the Paradise Motel. He went off to be a Marine and he was injured in battle and came back and has just come back having lost his leg. She didn't know he'd lost his leg and we find out in the first chapter at the party that this has happened. And this obviously causes a ripple across the entire town as their once great American hero now has come back clearly damaged both physically but also mentally, and that's probably the bigger issue that is not known to the town, but Skylar stumbles upon. I loved this story for a number of reasons. I felt the writing was incredibly authentic. I think the representation of the mental illness and the mental struggles and issues that Josh faces of a returning veteran to be so well discussed, in that there is no great solution and there is no one immediate fix for these men who return home, and that not one thing sets them off either. It's not that classic stereotypical, car backfiring, that means he's going to PTSD situation. And I think that was really well explored alongside the fact that he's an amputee. I also think what was really explored well was the lack of community that he felt in his own community, in that in the army as a vet, he got so much support and a brotherhood of men around him, and now there's a real absence in his life of that. And I loved hearing about that, and it gave me insight into why these men come back and feel so dissociated from their home when that's all they wanted to go to, is they come back and they're missing their other family. I also thought Skylar and her situation was incredibly well done in terms of the poverty that she lives in, and it wasn't that classic story that you see so much in new adult where one person is poor but everyone else around them isn't so poor, and that poorness that low socioeconomic poorness feels like an isolation, and as one character is like almost burden. In this community, everyone is quite poor. It's a community that's sort of struggling. It's a highway community where basically there's a motel, a couple of fast food joints and not much else. And I think that was really well done, both in Skylar's situation, but in her mother's situation, in her work situation, in her health insurance, the struggles to make ends meet in both big things like school and scholarships and funding, but also small things like food. There's a time when Skylar just can't afford to buy food and she's hungry. And her poorness wasn't the center point of her story. It was part of her story, but it was a good, well executed part of her story. I also thought the relationship between Skylar and Josh was so well done in terms of their slowly growing relationship. Wasn't an insta love. There was hauntings of feelings from previous, meetups and everything like that. But both of them didn't want to be together for various reasons, but were fighting a connection beyond themselves that was real. And there was no meant to be about it. It was a growing relationship that required trust, and they struggled with that. Both of them have, for very different reasons, struggled to trust each other and trust their own selves to be vulnerable enough. And that for me was really well done. And that's why I was really rooting for them to get together. And so when they finally, spoiler alert, it's a romance. When they did get together, I was emphatic and excited and cheerful about it. And then when there were more struggles, that also was real, and I felt like that was genuine, and that people behaved in ways that were realistic to them. The cast of characters that were around them were also really well done, and that people were realised they had lives of their own, and at times that interfered with the main characters, but at times it supported it. And that's just how friendships is. Sometimes you're the star of the friendship and other times you're not. And the parents and adults around them weren't absentee heroes. They were absentee, and it was challenged. And there were people who were supportive people and involved. I just really enjoyed this book. I was nervous about reading it too, because I kind of had such a good recommendation that I was like, oh my God, please don't be bad. But I really liked it. So if you're looking for a great new adult, but not so, like, it's not, the sex isn't the primary option, but in tone and topic, that's got some actual depth and emotional resonance, then I'd absolutely recommend this book. It's I'll Meet You There. It's by Heather Demetrios. It came out early 2016. Yeah, I can absolutely recommend this book.